Hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Closing Sessions 2022. We've finished the semester. So I hope you've had a good semester. For us on the staff, it's been nice to have people in the hallways and seeing students, seeing faculty. It brought some life back to campus, so I hope you've enjoyed that as well as you can too. So we're here for closing sessions. Please make sure those of you who are in the house have your phones turned off and not screens up because we're recording from here. And then we also have an audience out here in the live stream on YouTube. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to get off the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, can I welcome to the stage our president, Mr. Kenneth Adams.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen. Thanks, everybody, for coming here this afternoon. Thank you all. I'm Kenneth Adams. Thanks for joining me. As Stephen said, welcome to Closing Sessions for Spring 2022. My presentation this afternoon, as you might imagine, is for the most part an end-of-the-year wrap-up. I'm going to review some things we've accomplished this year, mention some important work in progress, recognize where we might have fallen short, and give you a sense of what we're going to be working on over the summer and into the fall. Before I go any farther, I want to thank our American Sign Language interpreters with us this afternoon, helping me out. Susan Weinstein, thank you, Susan, and Emily Hart, who they'll go back and forth and get this work done. So let's get started. Take a look at this list of 5 strategic priorities that I shared with you back on October 29th, 2020. Doesn't that seem like a long time ago? It's about 19 months ago, actually. And I identified these priorities when I was just 2 months into the job. But I hope they look familiar. They don't go away. Let's go to the next slide, Gina. Because here's the list today, June 8th, 2022. Hasn't changed all that much. I've updated the goals a little bit. The phrases in italics are just kind of wordsmithing to make it simple. Increase enrollment, improve student outcomes, build a more inclusive community, increase fundraising, support the communities of Queens. Before that it said, help Queens recover economically from the pandemic. So I'm taking some of the pandemic references out. And improve campus facilities and IT. By the way, that one, number 6, is new. The internet outage we had back in November and 2 recent cyber attacks, very serious ones, at other CUNY colleges convinced me to add this. And you can call me stubborn. These priorities, the first slide, the second slide, they're enduring. This drives our work, and many of them you're going to see me refer to these often in semesters to come. Anyway, let's move ahead and start with the first one, enrollment. This spring, our degree student headcount fell to 10,004 students, and that's of June 3rd. Now, and we've spoken about this. We did a whole session on it earlier in the semester. We're not alone, as we know, in this decline. The 7 community colleges in CUNY have experienced an average 17% drop in enrollment this year. And that's a trend through the pandemic, as we know, and it's part of a national trend, actually, affecting all 1,200 community colleges in this country. It's a troubling trend, and I'm going to refer to a couple of factors behind it in a minute, and I think we have to recognize we're not out of this enrollment storm just yet. Now, on the other hand, as you can see in the bottom part of the slide, or in both sections, ACE enrollment. So, on the other hand, ACE enrollment in pre-college and workforce training programs is actually where we want it to be. It's strong and it's growing. In fact, ACE enrollment through March was about 7,800 students. You can see that's the second bullet. And that's an increase of 17% over ACE enrollment from a year ago. So that's a very healthy recovery. Indeed, enrollment in ACE programs is recovering at a rapid clip, and the division has eliminated its operating deficit. Indeed, VP Sunil Gupta projects that we will exceed 8,000 ACE students by the close of the current fiscal year in about 3 weeks. Let's go to the next slide, Gina. So what are we doing to recruit new students? And by the way, this general heading is about increasing enrollment. Remember, there's always two pieces to that challenge: recruiting new students and doing everything we can to retain current students. In any case, our goal for the fall is to get our degree student enrollment back up to 12,000. This number makes me very nervous. It also makes Dr. Gail Bax-Jarrett quite nervous, our interim VP of Enrollment Management, but it's a number we've agreed on as a target. It's very aggressive. It's not going to be easy. We are facing some serious headwinds that I'm going to discuss in a little while. On the other hand, we've got some things in our favor, some positives here we're going to leverage. No pressure with that 12,000 student target for our new Director of Admissions, Shannon Lund. Fortunately, Shannon has 17 years experience in this work. You know, Shannon began his career as a tour guide at Brooklyn College. And since he came to LaGuardia in 2018, Shannon has created a couple of important enrollment and recruitment programs, like our Student Ambassador Program that provides peer support to prospective students. And he set up a thing called the Application Lab for individuals to receive one-on-one assistance with their CUNY applications in person or virtually. And the Application Lab has assisted more than 8,600 students in this 1 year alone. Now, over the last year, our marketing and communications team, led by Gina Taraskevich, who's helping us out today, that team has partnered with Enrollment Management to design and deploy advertising campaigns reaching thousands and thousands of prospective students. LaGuardia ads have appeared on Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, local broadcast stations. They've streamed on iHeartMedia stations, and of course we've had ads in print. And this year, here's an important sort of enrollment data point. More than 1,600 students, currently enrolled LaGuardia students, came to LaGuardia and enrolled after responding to one or more of these digital ads. So the return on this investment, modest investment, is really great. Let's take a minute, if we can, and play a couple of those ads. They're kind of fun.
LaGuardia Community College is where your future begins. For 50 years, LaGuardia has educated and graduated thousands of students and supports you every step of the way. Visit laguardia.edu/apply to get started. With flexible classes, you'll find options that fit your busy schedule. Don't wait. Apply today at laguardia.edu/apply. Earn a rewarding degree for less. LaGuardia has more scholarship dollars available than ever before to help students pay for college. Plus, you'll learn from the best professors and be prepared for the job you want. Visit laguardia.edu/apply.
That's a lot.
Empieza tu futuro en La Guardia Community College. La Guardia tiene una gran cantidad de especializaciones y programas de capacitación laboral que te ayudarán a tener éxito. Clases en persona y online. Visita laguardia.edu/hoy.
How about that? They'll be running all summer, trust me. And Gina and her team have a lot of versions of those ads, doing really well. Now, here's another topic. Adult learners, right? Recruiting new types of students, not being reliant simply on high school graduates from Queens, DOE high schools. And you know, you've heard me say this before, there are more than 700,000 people in New York City who have some college credit, often it's CUNY credit, but no degree. They never finish college. These are mostly working age adults, and many of whom have not been in a classroom in a very long time. Many of whom, by the way, have outstanding CUNY balances, often modest amounts of money, and other obstacles that keep them from coming back to school to finish their degree. So we want them back. And one of the things we're doing to attract these adult learners is our new program, Credits for Success. This is a pilot program that leverages the new CUNY policy for the awarding of academic credit for prior learning, be that on the job or military service or in some other school, some other setting. So we set up the new Credit for Prior Learning office just a few weeks ago. It's led by Marcia Oropeza, and she's going to work closely with Professor Janice Carlin-Pollock, who's been a leader at this in LaGuardia for many years, in this new initiative. Here's some other good news about enrollment. Fall enrollment of students that are moving from ACE programs to degree programs is nearly back to our pre-pandemic level. And if you remember my statistic from a few moments ago of the great number of students in ACE right now, close to 8,000, as long as that percentage keeps rising, right, those that come into degree programs, we've got a big pool of potential students over there. So that's encouraging. Something else that's interesting, and this, again, I give credit to all the great marketing, the social media outreach, the ads you just heard. Applications for the fall are up. In fact, they're up a lot. Applications for freshmen or first-time students for the fall semester are up 17.5% from where we were 1 year ago today. And applications, this is interesting, for transfer students, often students at other CUNY schools, often students in CUNY senior colleges that want to come to LaGuardia, those transfer applications are up 24% from where we were a year ago. So these are some encouraging statistics about where we are with applications. The challenge, of course, is that pipeline to convert applicants into actual enrolled registered students. And that's the work we'll be focused on all summer long. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, unfortunately, as we work to rebuild enrollment for the fall, we're still facing some serious headwinds. Look at some of these factors. Some of you've heard me speak about these things before. I spend a lot of time on these issues. In fact, I was just in a meeting, an all-day meeting at an organization called Jobs for the Future, the Policy Leadership Trust down in New Orleans yesterday, 10 hours in a room talking about this stuff with community college presidents from across the country. So what are some of these headwinds? Clearly, the economic impact of the pandemic on low-income families, on those households in Queens where students really need to make money to help mom pay back rent, need to get a job and keep up with rising inflation, for example. And so that trade-off, very difficult trade-off between I want to go back to LaGuardia or I want to start at LaGuardia, but I've really got to work. It's a huge factor here. Labor dynamics are also at play. I think you all know this, but right now there really is labor scarcity in many sectors of the New York City economy. And what does that mean? It means, on the one hand, this is a positive, rising wages in what are normally entry-level service sector jobs. Starbucks has to pay more per hour to get you to work at Starbucks, never mind Amazon or Uber Eats and all those services. So students are actually able to make more money. Those of you trying to hire college assistants at $15 an hour face this problem. And there's the appeal of gig work. This is something I've been thinking about lately, which is students who had this experience during the pandemic of online learning also learned about convenience, right? And doing things, particularly if they did asynchronous learning, doing things that's convenient for me at my time, juggling the needs of my life. And gig work has always been a really attractive alternative to students who, again, want to control when they work, when they make money. And there are a lot of opportunities now. I mean, I mentioned, DoorDash, but there are a lot of opportunities to do gig work. It pays better than it used to. And then, so students are understandably tempted to do that. I don't know if you saw, there was an article in the New York Times yesterday on the front page about this at a national level on the issue of students who were choosing to work instead of going to college. This is a national phenomenon driven by these factors. And one of the things accelerating it, I do believe, is inflation, which especially in other parts of the country, but where rising prices, right, driven by inflation, actually force students to have to work more hours in rural areas to pay for the gas, right? Or here to pay for rent, or here to pay for especially food and rising commodity prices. So remember the inflationary effects on low-income students. One is sometimes needing to sacrifice their educations, which is really quite tragic. And I mentioned in a tight labor market like in New York City, we definitely have rising wages for service sector jobs. And those jobs all of a sudden look more appealing. In terms of our international students, we're always very proud of having lots of international students at LaGuardia. Back in fall of 19, before the pandemic, we had about 500 international students. And during that pandemic, the number dropped kind of like a stone. Some of this was related to travel restrictions, for example, and changes in immigration law. But anyway, in fall 21, we had 227 international students. And we have about the same amount this semester. I think another factor, the bullet here that says the impact of online classes on DOE high school students. And again, I've spent some time looking at this, and I speak to other people around CUNY about this. I actually don't think I think we need to spend more attention on this issue, which is the COVID learning loss and the effect of COVID on New York City high school students. Every year there are about 58,000 graduates of New York City high schools. And so if you go back through the pandemic and take 3 cohorts, including high school graduates that will graduate this month from New York City high schools, that's 3 years or almost 180,000 students who had between 1 and 3 semesters of online DOE high school. And let's face it, that wasn't always a good learning experience for them. And it clearly had academic learning effects on them, right? Never mind social and other things that affected them in high school. So there's a huge impact, which again I believe needs more attention as a citywide issue, of the effect of online classes in DOE high schools for social development, for college kind of and career planning, and certainly for academic progress. And finally, there's this issue, which again, it's part of the national discussion. We spent some time on this yesterday. The pandemic and economic conditions, a few other factors are really forcing a lot of American families to think about the value proposition of college, which in candid terms is saying, is it worth it? Do I need it? And what do I need? What kind of training do I want? I mean, this is, again, a bigger national discussion, but one worth considering as we think about when we promote LaGuardia to students across Queens, adult learners, high school students, transfer students, the value proposition of LaGuardia. And how do we articulate it, and how do we have it make sense for our students, right? And distinguish ourselves, frankly, from the competition, which is another factor, right? It's steep. Now, there are other things we're doing to, I mentioned that enrollment isn't just all this work to attract new students, it's retaining our current students. So our third goal is improving student outcomes. And I divide this into two. First, teaching and learning. And here's, I think this is the value proposition of LaGuardia, frankly. This is where we stand alone. I mean, I think we're really unique in CUNY, certainly unique among community colleges, in our focus, our dedication to the rigorous pursuit of pedagogical excellence and innovation. That underscores our work. It's a foundation of LaGuardia and a distinguishing feature of this college. With respect to middle states, just to drive the point home, you know, we received the rare distinction when we completed the site visit and got the report from the team that we got special commendations in 6 out of the 7 middle state standards. That's quite unique. And I just want to pause and recognize again the amazing work, the really hard work of our self-study co-chairs, Math Professor Reem Jafar, English Professor Justin Rogers Cooper, and the many, many hardworking faculty and staff members who served on the self-study steering committee. Because what a reminder of our distinction academically and in terms of, again, that first bullet point, our pursuit of excellence and innovation. There's no better reminder or vindication than this very positive review we got from middle states. I guess I have to wait till I get the official letter when the commission votes in June, and we can celebrate. But that's something we really need to mention. You know, you may have seen the news about the Aspen Prize. We made the semifinal list of 25. We didn't make top 10. That's kind of their mistake, you know, their oversight. It's okay, you know. We're still 25 out of, let's say, 1,200 community colleges in the country. We're in good company, and we did really, really well and should feel very good about that. Also remarkable recognition of our great LaGuardia faculty. We had 5 professors named this year as 2022 Mellon ACLS Fellows. We just put something out about this recently, but it's worth recognizing. This is English Department Professor Paul Fess and Joy Sanchez-Taylor, Social Science Professors Dusanna Podluka and Nicole Shippen, and Humanities Professor Ari Richter. So congratulations to our 5 faculty colleagues in this amazing achievement. You know, there are only 30 Mellon ACLS Fellows that are picked nationally, and so 5 of 30 is really outstanding. Each one of our LaGuardia colleagues, by the way, is going to get a $40,000 grant to support their research. You know, the last bullet here, I just like to say over and over again, along with the first bullet, LaGuardia is what it is, and we deliver the outcomes we do for our students because of the qualifications, experience, commitment, and passion of our LaGuardia faculty. And as I complete, well, what did I say, 19 months here? I mean, I am just every day or every week when I get to meet new members of the faculty and get to know them better, I get convinced of this point more and more. Let's look at some other evidence of great teaching and learning. 2 Jack Kent Cook undergraduate transfer scholars this year. Mohammed Beckett is a computer science major, an ASAP student, a member of LaGuardia's Black Male Empowerment Cooperative. He's a first-generation American of Egyptian heritage, born and raised, of course, here in Queens. Now, he left school after 8th grade to help his family financially. Eventually, Mohammed pursued a high school equivalency diploma, and he took the test 4 times before passing. He actually should have come to LaGuardia, to our GED program. He would have done better. But he did pass the GED eventually. I mean, this is by his own admission. I'm not telling a tale he doesn't want me to tell you. And now he's in his early 30s, and he's going to graduate with a 3.8 GPA and as a member of LaGuardia's honor program. He hopes to attend NYU's Tandon School of Engineering. That's in downtown Brooklyn, near where I live. And he plans to become an engineer. Our second winner is James Stewart, a political science major who serves as academic representative for the social science department in our SGA, the Student Government Association, and he's a college rep for the CUNY University Student Senate. James is a member of the Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society, Transfer Scholars Network, and the CUNY Malave Leadership Academy. And James is going to graduate as a member also of LaGuardia's honor program and pursue a degree in psychology. So congratulations to them both. But remember, their success is really kind of the evidence of great faculty behind them. We are adding 25 new lecturer positions. We're in that process now. Provost Paul Arcario, department chair, is leading this hiring process. But this is a part of a CUNY-wide initiative to increase the percentage of full-time faculty in classrooms with our students. And so that, too, is going to really help us continue to advance all the great things we do in teaching and learning. Oh, and yes, the question of a new provost. All I can tell you is that today I'm actually doing second interviews with some of the finalist candidates. So that process is moving ahead well. Now, retaining our students involves other things that enhance the student experience. And we've made good progress this academic year on several fronts. First of all, reorganizing advising, because now, coming out of the pandemic, faculty are able to work on advising again. And so the question has been, what's the right structure with our professional advisors working hand in hand with faculty advisors? So we're calling this Advising 3.0 for now. This has been organized again by Dr. Faye Butler, our interim Dean of Student Success, in collaboration with Provost Paul Arcario and his colleagues. We're going to have training in the fall and a full-scale rollout by the spring of 23, next year, of this new model that connects students to both a professional advisor and a faculty member from their discipline. We are in the final phase of our journey back into the CUNY Athletic Conference, thanks to the good work of Dr. Faye Butler and our new Director of Athletics, Andy Walker. In the fall, we will kick off our athletics program, our revitalized athletics program, with the following: men's and women's cross country, men's soccer, which is appropriate because the World Cup, of course, is later this year, men's and women's basketball. So somebody out there in the crowd say, "Go Red Hawks, go Red Hawks." Another important thing we've been working on is forming this new Centro de las Americas. Earlier this year, you may recall, I suggested that we do more to live up to our designation as a Hispanic-serving institution. After all, 46% of our students identify as Hispanic. So we're not a Hispanic-serving institution requires, in the eyes of the Department of Education, 25% students who identify as Hispanic. So we're almost twice a Hispanic-serving institution. In any case, we wanted to do more to just live up to this very important obligation. And so, led by Chief of Staff Nayeli Valencia Turen, we had a committee of faculty and staff who developed a plan for the Centro de las Americas, or sort of like a Hispanic cultural center here at LaGuardia. Our application to the CUNY Board of Trustees was approved by the Committee of Academic Program Policy and Research last night. Assuming the full Board of Trustees, the CUNY Board of Trustees, endorses their own committee's recommendation at their meeting on June 27th, the Centro de las Americas of LaGuardia Community College will come to life on July 1st in just 3 weeks. That was an applause line. We started something new this year, the LaGuardia Merit Scholarships. Again, this was really the economic realities of the pandemic, students hard-pressed financially because of the pandemic, and the fundraising we've been doing over at the foundation and bringing them two together. So our enrollment management team awarded 1,000 of these LaGuardia Merit Scholarships in each of the fall and spring semesters. So that's 2,000 students getting $500 each, or that's $1 million of new philanthropic support for continuing and part-time students. And as I've mentioned in the past, for the first time, these awards are given to qualifying brand new students coming out of high school. You know, the traditional approach to scholarships is study for a few semesters and show me a GPA of 3.5 and maybe you get a scholarship. Well, that's pretty hard if you're just coming out of high school. So what we did is we said if you had an 80 average on your transcript from your Queens or Brooklyn DOE high school, you could, and you met other criteria, you could get the scholarships. And so many of those 2,000 students are brand new students getting this award. And it's interesting, we're starting to do an analysis of the impact, and it appears that the students who receive the merit scholarships are 10 to 12% more likely to return the next semester, talk about a retention device, right, than the students who are similar students that don't receive the scholarship. And so we're doing some more research to confirm all this, but the findings are very positive. LaGuardia Cares is always a fundamental part of what we do to make sure students can overcome the obstacles that often force them to leave LaGuardia. And this academic year, the team there has done an amazing amount of work. Again, much of it driven by the hardships created by the pandemic. LaGuardia Cares has served more than 3,500 students, including 1,100 new LaGuardia students. And they provided more than $137,000 in services. Many of that is cash assistance for an emergency rent payment. We use these electronic debit cards for food. Of course, we have the food bank. More than $3,000, by the way, came into LaGuardia Cares from donations from all of you in the fundraising that we do for LaGuardia Cares in opening sessions at the beginning of the semester. So to all of you who contributed then or otherwise or at other times to LaGuardia Cares, thank you so much. Finally, LaGuardia Cares partnered this year with Grow NYC and distributed fresh food boxes to 500 families. And they've also partnered with the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. This is a new service this year, and it's very important, to provide free virtual tax preparation services. Now, that may sound a little bit, I don't know, not very exciting. But it's actually really, really important, especially for low-income households, to file a tax return in order to get the EITC, the Federal and State Earned Income Tax Credit. New York City annually leaves about $2 billion of federal money down in Washington, D.C. because people, immigrants, low-wage workers, and other people don't file a return to get what would automatically come to them. And so the money stays down there. I always say, if you don't want the money, if you don't want to file the return, then you could let the Washington politicians spend your money because it was rightfully yours. And that happens. And so what Rhonda and her team have done at LaGuardia Cares is put this service in place, and we need to do this throughout LaGuardia to make sure every single person in this community files a return and gets that automatic payment. So big thanks to Rhonda Mouton and her terrific LaGuardia Cares team. Can we go back to the last? Yeah, how about that? The couple more bullets about this is also important. I mean, it's important during the pandemic. As we come out of the pandemic, it remains really important to remove the obstacles to success that our students sometimes encounter. One thing we've been able to do is, and this just happened, we've had some savings in one of our federal grants of stimulus money, and we can roll over a small portion of it to sustain the 7 mental health counselors that we hired during the pandemic, doubling the size of the counselors in the wellness center, and we can sustain them through December 31st, at least for now. We only had funding through June 30th, and so now we've got another 6 months of an extra 7, and they're terrific, amazing people, counselors in the wellness center providing mental health support to our students. So that's really, really helpful. We have reorganized and repositioned the CCPD, or the Center for Career Career Counseling and Professional Development, in the ACE division, planting Jessica Perez and her great team in the heart of all of our employer partnerships that the ACE team manages. And in that center, over the summer, we're building out a new infrastructure to support more and more internships for degree students and ACE students all across the college. You'll hear more about that in the fall. A very interesting twist on our Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program occurred this year, and that was the Fellows program. And this is where we had 91 LaGuardia students, basically business majors, accounting majors, business management majors, get paid internships with entrepreneurs who graduated from that training program and run small businesses all across the city. So it's a great kind of connection for Asante Howard and all the hundreds of people who have gone through the entrepreneurship training program, that those business owners now open up their companies and take in LaGuardia students. Goldman Sachs pays the stipend, pays for us to coordinate it, and Asante Howard, again, is the glue that makes all that, brings it all together, makes it happen. But that's a really great opportunity for LaGuardia students. And I said it about our faculty, and I'm going to say it about our LaGuardia staff. The reason this all works, and we deliver these results that enhance the student experience, increase retention, increase graduation, are the qualifications, the experience, the commitment, and the passion of our LaGuardia staff in all of these programs across the college that I've been referring to. This is, when I said at the beginning, we think about the 5 and now 6 strategic priorities that I keep try to drive us toward. This goal of building an inclusive and supportive community will never go away. It's aspirational. It's never perfect. We keep working. We do all we can to build an inclusive community. And this work may be led by Wendy Nicholson, but it's done by all of us. It only happens if all of us are committed in our hearts to doing this. So of the various things going on this year, as we launch all this work, I want to draw your attention to our plans for the social equity plan. Other colleges have done this. Wendy's been researching projects, social equity plans in other schools to get a kind of template for us. But the bottom line is we're going to put together a committee co-chaired by Professor Rachel Bacho and by Nathan Tosh and Wendy. They've all agreed to serve. And this will be kind of a steering committee to create our social equity plan. They're going to start in the fall, so you'll get some emails in September about joining the committee. In terms of timing, honestly, I had hoped we could start sooner, but Wendy corrected me, and so did Nava Lair, our Dean for Institutional Research and Effectiveness, in saying that we had to wait till we finished Middle States, because it's many of the same people that participated in Middle States we'd like to have participate in drafting the social equity plan. And timing-wise, again, you wait till Middle States is done, and then we work on social equity plan, and then we tee that up for the new college 5-year strategic plan, which would flow from the Middle States work and from the social equity plan that we're going to start this fall. So stay tuned for notices from Wendy about that, and I hope that you'll be able to sign up and get involved. Let's go to strategic priority number 4, fundraising. I think I've told you before that I want to raise a lot of money to support our students. Well, we did, and we're not stopping. This is a little bar chart. It gives some illustration about the foundation fundraising this year, FY22. It looks to me, Gina, like it's reading sort of almost $11 million. We did a $15 million campaign. Not all the money gets collected in FY22, but we've got commitments totaling $15 million. We finished that in March. But this is to give you a sense of perspective. Prior years, LaGuardia was getting $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. We really did something amazing, record-breaking with this, but we have to sustain it. And so I'm actually in final stages of interviewing candidates for a full-time, 100% focused executive director of the foundation. We haven't had that in a long time. And whose salary will be paid for by the foundation. That took some arm twisting by yours truly with our foundation board. But that's so we can function now at this higher level, because I feel we have an obligation to stay there and just to build a strong infrastructure for sustained fundraising at a higher level. Don't quote me, not $15 million a year. That's not going to happen. But not $3 million a year either. Somewhere in between. And this is going to enable us to continue to do amazing things like the merit scholarships, the ACE scholarships, lots of other things for our students. Including, by the way, I sometimes drift from my remarks. It makes Gina really nervous. One of the things I've been talking to the foundation board about is really dedicating a significant amount of the proceeds of the campaign to stipends for internships. We don't have nearly enough paid internships for LaGuardia students. And my aspiration, again, more on this in the fall, is to build out a system and to raise the money so we can promise a paid internship to every single LaGuardia student that wants one. So we're going to work on that. Anyway, all right. which, if you think it sounds like, this makes Provost Paul Arcario quite nervous, because it does sound like a return to the co-op model of LaGuardia Community College of 50 years ago. It's going to be different, and there are a lot of great things about that model, by the way, but it does take, you have to work very hard at this and be careful that you always have really quality experiences for students, and the system has to be very well run and very well managed, and you obviously have to have great partners that provide those internships. How often have you heard me say that we've got to double down on the second word in our name? A lot, yeah? This is number 5. That we have to live up to our obligations as an anchor institution here in Queens. So we're doing this. We've done this year in a lot of ways, and we're just going to keep pressing ahead on this. We've just got this obligation to serve Queens in more and bigger and more robust, powerful ways. And we're going to keep doing that. So the TELC, I love to cite this as an example. Liz Ainazi is in our audience here today. But hey, Liz and her team have done an amazing job. I think they'll give some credit to the foundation scholarships that have helped, help cover the 80% of the tuition to be in the TELC, the English Language Center. But what's happened is really quite remarkable. So, as you know, this really gives recent immigrants a chance to learn English, to proceed through a variety of levels, get to the level they need to get a good job. And this year, the TELC has served 1,749 students so far, because they're not done yet. And many of those 1,800 students, of course, take more than one section as they progress in their English language learning. But that's remarkable. And by the way, last I checked with Liz Ayanati on this in terms of how that compared to the prior year. About 2 months ago, the number of people in the TELC was 225% greater than the number of people in the TELC taking ESL 1 year ago. So that recovery is fantastic. The CUNY Workforce Hub is worth mentioning. This is a new initiative where we're partnering with Ostos Community College in the Bronx, and this is all supported by the New York Community Trust. And it's an initiative to help low-income communities that were upended by the pandemic. And the hub will provide workforce training in high-demand jobs and careers for at least 400 New Yorkers from these neighborhoods in the Bronx and Queens, just most hard hit economically by COVID. In terms of the ACE scholarships, another brand new thing this year, that we have had great success allocating foundation funding to students in ACE workforce training programs in addition to the TELC. And so in anticipation of the new fiscal year, at our board meeting last week, the foundation board approved a budget that allocated $500,000 for continuing or for additional ACE scholarships in FY23. And VP Sunil Gupta, who has a great relationship with the foundation board, knows that if he burns through the $500,000, he can come back and ask for more in the fall. Very special program that's up and running now and is going really well is our mental health peer specialist training program. Ben Journey, who developed the program with Hannah Weinstock, is here this afternoon. This program, the mental health peer specialist training program, again, unique in CUNY, I think actually unique in New York City, prepares New Yorkers with lived experiences with mental health conditions to help others facing similar challenges. And we're particularly focused on as for students, on residents, again, with lived experience in mental health conditions, who are recruited, Ben and his colleagues, Michelle and others, recruit from neighborhoods that are more hard hit by the pandemic. Because the idea is that these individuals get this training, and then they go back and connect with others in their own communities that, again, have mental health challenges. And these trainees really help to diversify New York City's mental health workforce. And according to Ben, they're now, the first cohort of students are out in their internship placements. It's going extremely well, and there's just a very, very high demand from our mental health service providing partners for more and more trainees to get out and to help. You're familiar with LaGuardia's well-known role in training people for careers as EMTs. This year, I mean, phenomenal results. We have trained, we just had a graduation actually for 80 of them, but total 125 EMTs are in our healthcare workforce across New York City right now, and 34 paramedics trained here at LaGuardia and are now FDNY paramedics. Now, I talked about facilities, which is the last and the sixth of these strategic priorities that I mentioned. I want to recognize VP Shahir Irfan and his terrific facilities and public safety teams for all their work to ensure we have a safe and clean campus environment. And join me in thanking all of those facilities people, our housekeeping, our facilities manager. It's an amazing, our public safety officer, Shahir. It's an amazing group of people, and we owe them a big round of applause. Yes, we do. So, what have they been up to? You know, all four of our campus buildings, including the space that we lease in B building, have had new high-grade ventilation filters installed. This is something that's been very important to our PSC chapter for good reason, to many others, that we have great ventilation, or we have up-to-date equipment that's well maintained and excellent ventilation. So this involved the installation of 1,500 or more than 1,500 high-grade air filters, and this is, again, in all of our buildings, and it's great work that we've been doing. We were able to secure 279 new computers and 40 laptops for faculty at the start of this semester. This is something we worked on with IT, again led by Nayeli Valencia in collaboration with IT and facilities, Shahir and his team. And it's a new program where every semester, to the extent we can, we're going to cycle out the old equipment and bring in the new stuff. And so we started that this spring semester. Our IT division is undergoing a review, and we'll be doing some planning for the fall. This in part is brought on by the departure of a longtime colleague, whom I want to offer a heartfelt shout out to, Henry Saltiel, who I think most of you know is going to be leaving at the end of the month to take on the VP of IT role at Hunter College, with a whole bunch of challenges over there that are going to keep him very busy. He leaves behind one of the most significant and successful and creative IT divisions anywhere in CUNY. LaGuardia has often been a laboratory for IT solutions thanks to Henry's work. And so he leaves that behind with a great team of colleagues. But we're going to look at the structure of the division and make sure, and this is frankly a takeaway from the internet problems we had with the back in November, we want to make sure we have the right balance between kind of help desk work, right, all the bricks and mortar of IT, including cybersecurity, and programming work, right, which is the applications, their maintenance, the website, things like that. So we have a pro bono outside group doing this review this summer, making recommendations to Shahir, me, and others around how to best organize IT in the fall. I hope you've noticed some of those empty tree pits on Thompson Avenue and Van Dam now have beautiful trees in them. Thank you to our facilities team for taking care of that. 29th Street. Many of you came out to our pop-up plaza celebration on 29th Street several weeks ago. We are moving ahead with New York City DOT, with the Borough President's Office, our Councilwoman Julie Wan, on an initiative created and driven by LaGuardia students in President's Society environment. And this incredible group of students, led by their environmental sciences faculty, you've seen it by now, but they have proposed we take 29th Street, and I call it, give it the Baruch treatment. If you know East 26th Street where Baruch is, the idea is to close that street between C Building and our parking lot to pedestrian traffic and make it a pedestrian greenway with bike racks and places to hang out in, to create more outdoor space for LaGuardia, but also for the Long Island City community. This is not something exclusive to LaGuardia. We really want to do it for the neighborhood and have something that will be good for the whole area. So we're just going to plug away on that over the summer and into the fall, and hopefully, again, get the green light from DOT to move ahead. Kind of fun fact, we finally, as those of you who are here at night know, the sign lights up. The C Building sign that says LaGuardia Community College, CUNY, is up and functional. And you can really appreciate it at night. At the daytime, you can't see the lighting too well. At the end of this afternoon's program, we have a video that is a really clever way of showing you that new sign. And no, those of you who are wondering, are we going to do the same thing on the Thompson Avenue side of the C Building? No. They just get the CUNY logo. CUNY and DASNY couldn't afford all those red letters all the way around the building, so they're on basically the western side. And that's a whole lot of fun, and a good thing, finally. Now, a couple things, and then we wrap up. On my mind, so I've mentioned some of this, but and this is a more serious note. Like increasingly obsessed with the problem of COVID-related learning loss on several levels. So again, more work on this in the weeks to come. But first in New York City high schools, as I mentioned before. If you think that maybe just half of the students of the 160,000 graduates that I mentioned could have had an effective learning loss, and it's much higher than that, that's still 80,000 students, right? I'm like, yeah. So the number, and so it's just stark to me that, and that's just seniors, that's just graduates. But if, again, 1, 2, or 3 semesters of online Queens High School, think about that. And what are we going to do when those students this fall come to LaGuardia? How do we assess their needs in terms of their math skills and their reading? I mean, we obviously got rid of AccuPlacer several years ago. What are we going to do to provide them with the tutoring, the support, the other things that they may need so they can succeed? I don't want to think of it this way or even put it this way, but imagine a student who has suffered through that and is dreaming of going to college only to get there and not being able to keep up. I mean, that happens. That happened before COVID, we know that. But if it happened because of the pandemic, which brought so many other problems into one's household, imagine. So we can't let that happen. So how do we compensate for COVID learning losses in our incoming students? And what do we do about learning loss of our current students? I've had too many discussions this semester with faculty who have told me very disturbing stories about student performance this semester, especially in these last few weeks leading up to the end of the semester. And you've heard these stories too, or you were in faculty, you know exactly what I'm talking about because you're in the classroom. But it's the students who still are not engaged, and they're not turning in work, and they're not showing up, and they're half checked out. And it's a level of disengagement, of academic apathy. It's not across the board, but you can see it, and people tell me these stories. And I'm very worried about it, because again, I worry about our students are here, in most cases, to get to someplace else. They're here to get to Baruch. They're here to get to Queens. They're here to get to City. And so we've got our own COVID learning loss to deal with here before they can successfully graduate and move on. Two things that if you have some time and want to read about this, Paul Atwell, who's a really good and very bright guy over at the Graduate Center, did a study he started last year. The final version came out in April, called Where Have All the Students Gone? And that's particularly about New York City high school students. And Dr. Atwell looks at the social effects, too, of online high school socially, what that means for students' maturity, right? And a whole host of other factors that normally support college success. Another study that does it at a national level, more on college learning loss, is called The Consequences of Remote and Hybrid Instruction During the Pandemic. And this is by the Center for Educational Policy Research at Harvard. And this is just out a few weeks ago. But they look at, I think, 1.5 million U.S. students and document. It's a rigorous study that documents learning loss, and the extent of it, particularly, by the way, among students from low-income households and immigrant communities and communities of color. And again, people aren't talking about it, but in some of those school districts, if it was K through 12 school districts and otherwise higher education systems, and this is just the reality, the longer students were out of the classroom, the longer they were in line, stands to reason, the greater the learning loss. Again, documented by others, but those are two studies that have been keeping me up at night. Now, another thing I just want to touch on, and I mentioned value of internships before, this is another spin for me on the value of work-based learning, of internships, especially, again, internships that are paid, that are of significant duration, that are with good employer partners that could be community-based organizations or government agencies or businesses, like the Goldman Sachs program I mentioned. But how important this is for our students. And I've given a lot of reasons for this. I know this is an audience that I don't need to convince, but there's another one that's on my mind, and this goes back to a column that David Lanhart wrote in the New York Times in late March, so earlier this semester. And Lanhart was looking at the very disturbing amount of what he called social disorder across this country these days. You know, when you add it all up, violence and political nastiness and hate and antisocial behavior of all sorts. Anyway, in looking at all that, he suggests that at least one solution is to rebuild social trust. And I was sort of intrigued with this, and I said, well, okay, so what do we do at LaGuardia to rebuild social trust? And one of the solutions, I believe, if the challenge is rebuilding social trust, is to engage in service to others. And community service, for example, volunteering, things like that, that basically inspire or drive empathy and kindness and consideration, respect, patriotism, civic responsibility. And so how can you do that? How do you do that as a college? I just think this is an obligation for us. And one is certainly internships, as I've mentioned, and internships in kind of community service organizations. And so how can we support more of that and engage our students? And by the way, it's a two-way street, right, in rebuilding social trust. So it could be the outgoing, caring LaGuardia student with empathy and respect is doing the volunteering, and it's the people on the other side of her service that their social trust is being restored. Their social trust is being, because they're inspired by our students. Something else I think we have to think about, and I'm going to work on this over the summer, is I again think we have an obligation to think about ways we can support more refugee students. You know, we're going to have a, spoiler alert, a graduation speaker at graduation at Queens College on June 21st who is a refugee student. And thanks to the foundation, by the way, got scholarships because he wasn't able to get financial aid. And I'm particularly focused right now or concerned about refugees from the Ukraine. I think we have an obligation to do all we can. And also Afghanistan. We forget about Afghanistan, but the horrors of Afghanistan began almost a year ago, last summer, when the Taliban took over the country, and we walked away. America walked away. So, you know, what are we doing? What are we doing with community-based resettlement agencies here in New York City that help these populations? How do we leverage this the incredible CEIT, our Center for Immigrant Education and Training here in ACE? But institutionally, what's our response, for example, to Ukraine? I think there's some very practical things we can do. So we're going to work on that. And my bigger concept here is to roll up this work where we double down on the second word in our name and serve Queens in a construct I call the LaGuardia Community Partnership, you know, where we organize and focus and lead the way in partnership with community groups around the borough and try to address these issues. So more on all this when I see you in September, but I hope this gives you a flavor, a sense of what's on my mind and what I think we need to work on over the summer, along with all the work we've got to do to rebuild enrollment. Don't shy away from that. And so I look forward to, again, giving you an update next time I see you. Let's go to something very important at the very end of this, which is a big thank you. And we always do this, or I try to do this in these events, which is to recognize, in this case, 33 colleagues who this year, in this academic year, announced their retirement, or actually, you know, retired. This is too long a list for me to read every name, but when you see some of the names on this list, in many cases we're talking about people, in all of these cases really, we're talking about people who devoted their careers to LaGuardia, but in some cases an extraordinary long career. I think of our provost, Paul Arcario, in 34 years of his career, that is his career, here at LaGuardia. I think of Richard Lieberman, Avis Anderson, and there are a number of names when you look at this list. I'm too new here to know everybody personally, and I really apologize for that. But this is remarkable. If you think of each one of these people for a moment and all they've done for LaGuardia, especially for our students, and then you say, wait, there's 33 names on this list. It's incredible, right? This is and this is me saying this in one closing sessions on June 8th, 2022. You know, this is amazing, right? And so just take a moment to read that list and think about these wonderful people, how grateful we are to them, you know, how special their service to LaGuardia, because they have made this place what it is today. There's no question. And we are forever in their debt that they should have devoted so much of their time and energy and their work, their great work, to our students and to this institution. So thank you for your service to all of you. Well, no time left for Q&A, he said. I want to wish you all a great summer. A couple of reminders. Mark your calendars for October 22nd. It's LaGuardia Community Run, our 5K run. And so, yeah, you have the summer to train. This will be a highly competitive event. We're going to run from the parking lot down to the river, probably on Vernon Boulevard, and back again. October 22nd. Training starts right away. More importantly, and right around the corner, graduation, June 21st, as I said earlier, the beautiful campus of Queens College. We've got about 2,000 students graduating. It's going to be a wonderful day, and hope to see lots of you there, or all of you there if you can. And in the meantime, I just wish you all a wonderful summer, a restful vacation, and come back rejuvenated because we're going to have a lot of exciting things going on this fall. Thank you very much. Gina, that's a wrap. All right. You got it? Oh, I sent. Turn off the computer.